Attention, please.
And now, it's Cutter's Rocckast.
Hello.
Hey, man.
What's going on, dude?
How much? How you doing?
I'm all right. Spanky McGee, nice.
Dude, I did it for the very first Zoom that I had in like March or April, and I don't even know how to change it back. So I'm just really, I've been like not led into meet and greets and things because they think I'm trying to crash. So, it's kind of worked out sometimes.
That's actually hilarious. Who's that guy? Get him out of here. Oh, it's only the lead singer of the band. It's fine.
This lurker trying to gate crash a meet and greet.
Shaun Morgan from Seether, dude. It's good to see you. Just so you know, this is going to air next week. Okay. So when I reference Valentine's Day with Shaun Morgan, that's why.
Okay, cool.
I figured you could be my date. I don't know. Is that cool?
I mean,
it's a virtual Valentine's date with Shaun Morgan. I like it.
Palentine's. Yeah, that'd be good, man.
Palentine's. There you go. Okay. So when this album was released, I had to have your drummer explain to me how to pronounce it. And to this day, I feel like the most Midwestern, Wisconsin, Northern accent. Every time I say it, it's like instead of Seether's Pacem, Bellum, I feel like I sound like, oh, let me just squeeze right past you with this record, huh?
No, that was actually good, man. I felt bad because somebody asked me, they said, hey, are you trying to trip up all the DJs because you picked this name that nobody can say? I was like, well, honestly, I didn't even think about it. I would have just said Parabellum the whole time. But yeah, it's. I
wanted to.
Yeah, well, you have been granted permission to
yes.
just use the diminutive.
Right. Good.
But yeah, that wasn't bad at all, man. That was impressive.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, so obviously it's a Latin term. I mean, we know what it means at this point, but why? Like, why was that resonating in your brain? Why was that phrase sitting there to call an album that?
Well, I didn't really have any ideas for a name for a change. Usually I come up with a name fairly early in the writing process because I get a sense of what I'm trying to achieve. But this one we were done, man. We were mixed and we were in mastering and it still didn't have a name. And it was now, I think February of 2020. And there was already all these rumblings, in society. And then we were hearing about this virus and all this kind of stuff. And I was just kind of scrolling through websites on the internet looking for phrases or just trying to get inspiration, really, to try and give this thing a name that was poignant. Mm-hmm. And the rabbit hole is deep, man. You know how it is. If you start searching, you can start searching bread baskets, and the next thing is you're watching, beheadings. I mean, it can move that fast. That was dark, Jesus. But I basically, bit. Yeah. So when I stumbled across this Latin phrase website, and I was like, oh, this is cool. And I was kind of scrolling through, and a lot of them didn't make any sense. And then I stumbled upon this one, and it just jumped out at me, and I was like, okay, well. You always have to be careful because naming an album seems like it's easy, I think, but it really isn't because you're trying to sort of put a stamp on something and sum it up and sort of create the name for this snapshot in time. Mm-hmm. And you don't want it to be too pretentious, but you also kind of want it to be somewhat poetic and, and maybe have a little bit of depth to it. So that's kind of what this was. It was, to me, I had never heard the phrase. I obviously knew Parabellum, but I had never heard the full phrase before. So I thought, well, that's cool. I didn't even realize. Then somebody pointed out, oh, is that a John Wick 3 reference? I was like, no, dude, I didn't even know that was the full name of the movie. Everyone else did just call it Parabellum or John Wick 3. So there's no connection there. But it just seemed to have a little bit more gravity to it when it was in Latin. And I did a little bit of Latin at school. I didn't really study it much, but we said the Lord's Prayer in Latin twice a week. So I was kind of exposed to it a bit. And at my school, Latin was an option as a language right up until about my middle of high school when they sort of abandoned it because nobody was really taking the class. But so I've been exposed to it a bit. And it's such a cool language. It's so interesting that so many of the things we say and the phrases we use come from either Shakespeare or Latin. And I just wanted it to have a little bit of gravity to it. And I think putting it in Latin does that. But I was a little nervous that it may be slightly leaning towards pretentious. But then as the year kept going, I was like, no, I think it works really well. And yeah, it may have felt a little hyperbolic in the beginning, but I think that as the year unfolded, unfortunately, more and more of the lyrics were applicable, and even more so than they had been the year previously. So you normally hope that when you see nothing but despair and pain in society, you hope that it gets better, not worse. And unfortunately, it seems like it's gone the wrong direction for me. Anyway,
It has. I don't think anybody could argue that. But I want to go back to something you just said. Growing up and saying the Lord's Prayer in Latin, that's obviously a Catholic reference. I grew up very Catholic as well. Now, you were in South Africa, right? For the most part, weren't you, as a kid?
Yeah. I only moved to the States in 2002 when I was 23.
Okay, I thought it was pretty right on when the band kind of kicked in. Either way, growing, I don't know how I want to phrase this, but it's not very often that I meet somebody or I could talk to somebody who actually grew up that kind of Catholic upbringing. My aunt was a nun. It's church twice a week and catechism class and all that stuff. But that experience, do you think that helped shape kind of the artistic brain part of you? Because there's so much. Catholic school in of itself is so much more heady than regular public school. So I'm just curious if you kind of garnered any influence from that as far as being able to be a musician and an artist and a writer.
There was a moment when we had the Catholic religion at the house, and then we went through Presbyterian, and then we went through Seventh Day Lutheran, and then we did. My biological mother went to like a super evangelical type thing where you're in church for 3 hours, and I'm like 5 years old wearing a 3-piece suit, and everyone's going amen and hallelujah the whole time. So I was exposed to a wide variety of them, and our neighbors were devout Catholic, and they did the catechism things and all those kinds of things. And I sort of viewed that from the outside. But
Gotcha.
my parents, I think what was interesting, my dad and I spoke after my brother died about how we were both pissed at God for whatever manifestation that is to whoever. And these days, I currently reside in the not so religious category. But
yeah, you and me both.
His thing was, I tried everything. After he died, I tried all the religions again. I went back and I and he said, if there was a God, I want him to come down here so I can ask him face to face why that happened. Why did your brother kill himself? And probably get in a couple shots if that was possible. But for me too, I always sort of, I think up until 2007, I may have thought of something as godlike, or thought, I'll admit to saying as a plane takes off, I'm going to say a couple Hail Marys or something. and if I don't do it, then somehow I have let down the entire passenger base of this plane and we're going to die in a fiery mess. And it was just kind of this weird thing. But after my brother passed away, I was like, you know what? I'm done. I'm really done, because there's just been so many injustices and so many heinous things that have happened, from starting with my really young childhood through my adolescence into now my brother dying. I just gave up. I said, I'm done. If you're out there, I'm done. So good luck to you. Peace, deuces. And I don't know that religion ever came into it, but maybe more on the social side of it. Like, my mother took us to these really, really hardcore, devout, or almost scary churches, not quite speaking in tongues, but just this side of the line. And then, she'd screw around on her husband at the time. So she's this devout religious person, reads the Bible every night, dutifully, and then behaves like something that's not Christian at all.
And that story exists over and over and over and over.
Devout Christians are like the least Christian people you'll ever. Well, certainly the ones that I grew up with. I can't blanket statement that, and I apologize if anybody was offended. It was not my intention. But it's in my experience, a lot of that side of my family that was quite devout really weren't very good people. They would absolve themselves on a Sunday. And in fact, Dale, our bassist, his sister was a reverend. She actually, how's that for how the kids turn out? One's a reverend and one's a bassist in a rock band. I don't think you can find two opposite vocations for your kids. But she eventually quit the church that she was part of, because even amongst the clergy, and the people that would stand on the pulpit every Sunday, and they would preach this this way of life. They were the guys that were beating their wives when they drank too much, and they were, and they. So she saw the hypocrisy, and she left, and she actually went to a church that was very, underfunded, and she was helping the poor, and she's great. But so I was always kind of turned off of the organized religious thing from about when I turned into a teenager. And then I used the going to so when we were the Seventh-day Adventists, I think is what we were at that point. I don't know. But they had a youth thing on Fridays, and I would use that to go meet girls because I went to an all-boys school. So really it was, and again, it wasn't an orgy or debauchery, but it certainly wasn't everybody sitting there with their Bibles in their laps and they're reading from scripture and learning how to be better people. It was just kids hanging out and trying to make out with each other. So I don't know that religion itself has ever had but I do mention God a lot. And I've certainly, certainly in the earlier stuff, in one of the earlier songs we ever had, I said, save me, smiling Jesus, get off that cross, which is horribly blasphemous to some people. Or at the time I was trying to make a point that I was at odds with my parents and we weren't speaking. I was a teenager, so obviously I think I know better than they do, and they knew better than me, and so we clashed a lot. And I, at one point, looked up at a crucifix on the wall, and I cynically asked the Jesus Christ figure to get down and help me because that's his job, I guess. But anyway, so there's a string of things, and I think when I've used religious. When I've referenced any kind of religious imagery or any kind of statement I've made, it's really more like No Jesus Christ was written about somebody who thought that they were a lot better a person than they are, and so it was used as a kind of a club to say, get off your high horse, because there's that perception that obviously Christ is infallible, and if you believe that you're infallible, I put you in the same kind of category. Now, I have no problem with other people believing whatever they believe. I also, I think that that's great. I in some ways envy people that know for a fact in their minds when they die where they are going. So they're not afraid of it. I don't know where I'm going. Hell, right. How many religions are there? Like, how many gods
Hundreds.
are there? Exactly. I don't know. So which one is right? Which one's wrong? I mean, so it's kind of, it gets to that point where there's just, I asked too many tough questions that I could never really find the answers to. And I've read a bunch of the different books from all of these religions, and all of them sort of just lead me to the same, well, how do I know this is real? How do I put blind faith into something that I'll never see proof of? And that's kind of the foundation that it's built on. So you have to blindly say, okay, I believe, I accept this, and I'm going to read some old stories, and I'm going to just, I know again for a fact that when I die, I'm going to go to Valhalla or heaven or wherever you end up, and it's going to be beautiful. You'll never be hungry. You'll never be thirsty. You're going to have all the harp music your heart could desire. So in that sense, there's been a cynical streak in me, and that's come out in the music. I don't know that it's ever been a driving factor, but right. I know because I also know that it's, if you bring in any kind of religious reference, and it's not necessarily in the most positive light, you can start a conversation with somebody, or you can get somebody to think about something differently. And I can't tell you how many times I've had people hand me a note and say, find Jesus again, or find God, or whatever. And it's, and I appreciate that they think they are doing what's best for me. But I just sort of, I take the note and I put it in this collection of these kinds of notes that I have. But I also, it's the one of the big foundations, I think, of religion, and certainly in the ones that I grew up in, were that if you didn't have religion, you were a bad person. And that to me is patently false. I think you can be a good person, right, and you can have morals and ethics, and you can have a way of living your life that doesn't harm anybody else without praying to something that you cannot see or hear or feel or touch. And so there's always been a question in my mind, and I often talk about it, and I often use, like in, let's say, just to be topical for right now, you'll save yourself with prayers in the new single. It's like, just because you brought up religion, that's why I'm tying it in. But it's because I'm acerbically stating, you think that any wrongdoing that you perpetrate, anything that you've done that's considered bad, you'll save yourself. You just go, on Sundays, pray, and you're all good. I mean, one of the interesting things that I learned as a kid was, you don't even have to know who Jesus is, but if you pray to him right on your deathbed, you're going to heaven, man. It's like, okay, it's that easy? So I can just spend my entire, and then the other question that I always had a big problem with, and it still bugs me to this day. There's two more on the religious thing. And I think that they've been, we can go back to Catholicism on this one. We had a maid in South Africa that basically raised us as kids. Mm-hmm. And she was very close with both my brother and I. And when he committed suicide, she was distraught for more than just the sadness, because she knows in Catholicism he's going to hell because suicide is one of the ultimate sins. Right. So, and then my aunt is also very Catholic, so she had to sort of explain to her, okay, well, look, there's a more modern way you can look at it and say, okay, yes, it is in the eyes of the Catholic Church, it is a huge moral sin, and you are then banished to hell, but maybe. It wasn't that he wanted it. He lost a battle that he was fighting in his own mind. So it wasn't that he did it intentionally. In fact, I think he did it quite, spur of the moment, to be honest. And a lot of suicides are quite, in that moment. They don't. Sometimes people think about it, but I think statistically, and we work with the guys from Save very closely, and he's told me that it's normally within 10 seconds that it's decided, that it's an impulsive decision. It's like, oh yeah, and that's kind of how people do a lot of the time, which is I've certainly felt close to that at the times in my life, but yeah. So there's that side of it where I changed my mind. And then the other thing that that's always bugged me is that you are born with original sin, and unless you are baptized, you are going to go to hell. And let's say, for example, a baby dies, then the baby's going to go to hell because it wasn't baptized. And that to me is so cruel. You know what I mean?
And it's ridiculous. It's such a ridiculous thought that an innocent child, a baby, who's never had an opportunity to screw up or do anything, is automatically put to damnation because they didn't get some water put on their...
Yeah, a little 2-year-old toddler running across the street gets hit by a car, dies, and now it's going to hell. It's not... It just, to me, it just didn't make any sense.
Right.
So on all of those... When I look at it logically, I kind of have drifted very far from it. And I drifted away from any kind of that belief system right around, the time my brother died, obviously. And so, because again, I don't like to think of, and it comes out in the music often. I don't like to think of it as it's not in my control. Just believe everything's going to be fine. Your best interests are at heart. Well, then how come things happen that are terrible? Okay, how is that in my best interest? And why am I supposed to love because of fear? Why am I supposed to admire and adore because of I'm terrified that if I don't, I go to hell? So it's not
right. Isn't love in supposed to be based off in admiration and respect and caring and any of that? We've gone really deep into way deeper than I thought we were going to, Shaun. I'm not gonna lie, but the conversation about suicide and specifically in that religion where it's an automatic you're in hell or you're kind of in this in between. The movie What Dreams May Come, it always makes me think of that with Robin Williams, and I don't know if you know that movie or not. Don't ever watch it tripping acid, and I'm only saying that because a friend told me.
I think that's good advice for pretty much anything.
A friend told me not to do that. Anyway, but you're with your brother's suicide, and again, I know this has been a long time, but completely tragic. Was that really the kicker in doing the charity stuff that you started doing? Obviously, I mean, Seether had the fest in Portland, Maine, and various things that you guys have been able to do.
I tell you what, it took a year or two for me to really drag myself out of that because, full disclosure, I put as much cocaine as is humanly possible without stopping my heart and my body for a good...
Oh, I just basically admitted to dropping acid, so you're fine.
Okay. So yeah, and then I thought, well, look, this can't go on this way, and I need to figure out something that I can do that can bring awareness to this, not selfishly for my own self-serving purposes, but I kind of wanted my brother to live on in some other way that wouldn't end in him being a statistic in a book or in history, and that was it. So it was a way to sort of have him continue to live on in a sense. So okay. we started Rise Above Fest. The first one was thrown together real quickly. It was basically I had the idea, made some phone calls to some bands that were in Boston at the time. They were touring or in that area with management. We sort of haphazardly threw this thing together. It was up in New Hampshire where I lived at the time, It was all right. It really, it was, I think we had like 5,000 people there, 4,500, 5,000. And, we had people pitching that were doing lights for free, really great. Everyone sort of came together because there's a lot of suicide up in the Northeast. Like it's brutal up there because of, I think, a lot of factors, weather and et cetera. But so it was really well received. And then the venue bitched because they didn't make enough money. So we moved it to Bangor. So we had that first one, we missed a year, and then we moved to Bangor. And we had a really good run up there. I mean, we built it up. It was the largest gathering in the world for suicide awareness and for mental health awareness. Way before it became cool for these pop tartlets to talk about it, we were doing something at a grassroots level and really actively supporting it, and shining a spotlight on it. And that's not to say I'm not trying to sort of be. I'm not bragging.
No, I get it. I get
you know
it.
what I'm saying? But we didn't have to tell everybody to pat us on our backs because we were doing something that's so cool. Anyway, so then we did it. Like I think we had a 4-year run up there, and then it just. A lot of things came to light that we were being screwed over really hard by the people that we trusted, and some heinous things that happened behind our backs, and then it was sort of the whole thing was kind of just taken away from us and commandeered, and then what happened was nobody supported it because as soon as they found out we were not involved, they didn't care anymore because they knew now it was just a corporate money grab. And there were some people that were involved that really only cared more about the money rather than. And for me, it's all about the cause. I don't make any money. We donate every single ticket we sell to a show. We don't donate something to save. Every single T-shirt. There's always money going to this charity. It's not my charity. It's just one that I believe in. So then, anyways, long story short, we lost that. At this point, I'm now living in Tennessee. Then we had last year. We had the guys that the big festival production guys were really great.
Danny Wimmer presents.
Danny Wimmer, they're awesome, and many kudos to him. The Exit 111, they tried it out, and we had a stage dedicated to Rise Above and everything, and it was really, really cool. But we still want to get it to a point where it's its own entity again. It's its own freestanding festival, and we were supposed to relaunch it last year, which didn't work out. So
of course.
Yeah. So we are
everything was supposed to happen last year. I was supposed to pick up 27 more affiliates last year, and it didn't happen,
Yeah. I mean, dude, what a trash heap of a year. But so now we are looking again, we're probably going to be working with Danny Wimmer and those guys.
Okay.
Hopefully if they're willing to work with us again, because it's a great company, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And we're gonna look
fantastic.
And we're gonna try and look at maybe sort of relaunching it in a much grander way in a bigger city that's more accessible to the rest of the country. For example, like Bangor, Maine, the people that came from all over the country and even the world to be there for that festival, that's a heck of a commitment. And by the way, it's a cool little town, but it's about as northeast as you can get, right? There's not many, there's not much further, and you're in like Prince Edward Island,
right?
I mean, it's obviously not that bad, but I'm just kidding. But we want to move it possibly to Florida, where the weather's good, where the potential for relaunching it in this year is a lot more possible than, let's say, if we had to go to a different kind of state where you can't even go get a cup of coffee without being, wearing 17 face masks. So there's a whole. But then again, there's that question of the real rub has been, and I mean, I could have used certainly much stronger words, but the real problem has been, there's all this guilt laid at our feet now. So our job is to get in a room and get as many people in that room as possible, right? And have a good time.
You're an entertainer. That's the whole point. Make as much money for the venue, yourself, and everything else as possible.
Yeah, most other people, like everybody else. But yeah, that's the point. Now we've been I would say almost demonized to the point where if we said, you know what, screw it, we're gonna go out and play some shows, and the protocols are up to you, however you want to be. You're an adult American citizen. Do what you want to do. We're gonna get up here and play, and we'll all have a good time. Then you get the possibility and the inevitability of being called, you're a super spreader. You don't care about people's lives, people's grandparents. So there's that we've been almost, if we want to go out and do what we love to do, we've been demonized into fearing it to completely, right? So we're going to start slowly playing shows this year, and I'm at a point where I'm the way I see it now is, look, we're all adults. There are protocols in place to keep everybody as safe as humanly possible. And hey, if all those things have been working so well, how come this stuff's still spreading around? You know what I mean? It's like everyone's staying home, everyone's masking, everyone's washing their hands, everyone's social distancing, and yet it still keeps rolling.
Well, not everyone's doing that. That's
right. True.
I don't even want to get into that conversation because there are so many different sides and angles and
exactly. It's
hectagons and.
But yeah, so that's the hope, is that we can relaunch it at some point and give it the lineup that I think it needs, a really strong lineup, so we can get a big, sort of a lot of attention around it. And then we'll see how it goes, man. Hopefully.
Good. We've taken up a lot of time just talking about this stuff. The new single is "Bruised and Bloodied," of course, from, I'm just going to say, Parabellum. Siwis Pacem Parabellum. Is of course the album. Dude, it's a great record. It's a great song. I said this when that record came out, and I feel like I say this to everybody, and I'm not ass kissing anybody. I'm just a big fan of music, but this is my favorite Seether album. And I said that about the last record. Like it's like there's just constant kind of shit. They're getting better, you know. As you go, Seether is like a fine wine, and they're getting better and better and better.
Well, thank you. You know what's interesting about that is I feel the same, and it's I don't know what to attribute it to, because I love writing music now more than ever. I really enjoy sitting in this very room and having no ideas, and then by the end of the day having a song or two songs or whatever.
Right.
I've been the one that's been in full control of the music now for the past two albums. There's been no producers present to come and put their finger on it, and there's been no A&R guys breathing down my neck. And we'd been through so many producers. I learned so much from all of these guys, and I also learned things that I didn't want and I didn't like, and I didn't like how the mixes were sometimes in the past, and how they were more glossy just for a certain audience, and really not representing us as a band. Even if you think the first single was Fine Again, right? And it was great. It worked out well, and it started our career. But I would have much preferred something heavier from the album to give a better representation of who we actually are. Look, the softer side is great, and I love the song, don't get me wrong. But it almost felt for the first few albums like we were misrepresented by the single choices. And the label likes to pick things that are more accessible, let's say. But now we're on a new label, and I've been producing the albums, and certainly the past two. So there's this real sense of freedom, because we don't have an A&R guy that breathes down our neck at all. He just says, hey, whenever you got somebody to send me, go for it. You know what I mean? It's that kind of trust that's been built up, and that kind of freedom, which I think all of those things combined, you know, a supportive label, a supportive A&R guy, a lack of a producer who feels like he has to do stuff to earn his money, basically. You know, and I don't think they all do that. Don't get me wrong. I think some certainly do. Some try to weasel in on the songwriting because they're scumbags, but for the most part, a producer thinks that they're there, and I genuinely believe they do. That they believe that they are there to create the best version of you, but their idea of the best version of you might not be the same as my idea of the best version of me. So,
right.
What's been really cool is to be able to say, no, I've got the reins of this, and then I know that I can find the right guys to, like, the right engineer and the right assistant engineer to get what I'm trying to hear, you know, onto the album. I don't have the skills to run I've been working with Logic for, you know, since it came out, but I never got into Pro Tools because I just
as in like Pro Logic, like the Apple.
Yeah.
Man, I haven't seen that program in years.
Well, it's all I use, because, you know, I started with GarageBand, so it was a natural progression.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And it was more user friendly. But, you know, I have these little cheat mats that I have for Pro Tools. So it's like this. So this is all the little the shortcuts.
Yep.
So that's how I'm trying to learn Pro Tools.
I've seen one of those before. Yeah.
Yeah, you want to be sort of up to date with the industry standard, because it was funny. I was producing a band, and Corey was actually engineering it, and he left for some reason, and they were ready to track, and I didn't even know how to start. I was like, well, I guess we'll just wait for Corey to come back, because I was like, but if it had been Logic, we could have tracked all day. But yeah, I don't even know what I was talking about.
Oh no, it's fine. That's a fantastic story. Yeah, man. It's the time is short, so I could sit and talk to you all day, and we have in the past. But Shaun Morgan from Seether, dude, thank you so much. It's good to see you. I'm glad to hear you're doing well. The record's fantastic, and good luck on playing the show. Stick to your convictions, man. Like, I've said this in the last 3 interviews I've done. A buddy of mine and I have been playing a couple acoustic gigs at bars and trying to be as safe as possible. But, dude, after a year and a half, is like, I'm broke, first of all. Like, and secondly, like, I need to play my fucking guitar, man.
Well, and I tell you what, I'm sick and tired of being told that my desire to get out and do what I love to do is somehow non-essential, and I'm sick and tired of the possible demonization of musicians that just want to get out and do what they love. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And you talk about how it's just getting stupid at this point. Now they're talking about 2 masks, 3 masks. You know what I mean? It's like, I mean, come on. When are we going to say, okay, where is the camera? Where is it hidden? What do we want us to do next? Now we're going to start wearing tutus because that's somehow going to depress the virus below our waistlines. I mean, it's just it's becoming comic.
Well, the issue, the common sense stuff is just lost so much. Yeah. Because it's the simple fact of, okay, well, how do you not spread bacteria in virus situations? Wash your fucking hands. I mean, it's not that hard. Don't pick your nose in public. Like, those simple things, if we just do those things, we're okay. Dude, right before, I'm going to say this story and then I'm going to let you go. Right before lockdown happened, we were all in Las Vegas, like 2 weeks before, right, for the Rock Radio Convention. And I know you've been at that before. But, so we're all in Vegas. We come back, all this, shit hits the fan, basically. Yeah. And I have the kids. we go to GameStop. I'm like, I bought a couple Nintendo Switch games. I'm like, stocking up, And I go to Walmart. I had one thing I had to get from Walmart, and I stopped at a Walmart I never stop in on the other side of town. And I walk in there, and I'm following like 4 people that are just. I felt, and I don't know if it's because it was in the air or what, but I felt like, and I grew up in a trailer park, man. I'm used to crazy, like, not very cleanly people, let's say, but. This was the cake, man. I'm just like, yeah, I'm grossed out. I'm going to go hide in my house. I don't even care now. Like, I don't even want to deal with these people. But then again, after a year, it's like, no, I want to come out now. Like, this is ridiculous at this point. But what do we do?
I think that you're right. I think that you may have had a very high bar 12 months ago. I think everybody's okay to let that bar slip a little now, so we can have a little bit more freedom. And
yeah, right.
Just get some like breathe some fresh air, and I don't know, just it's got to end.
The air, again, it's the clean, it's the wash your hands, it's the don't pick your nose in public, and again, if you're gonna sneeze, don't sneeze on somebody. Like, it's those kind of simple things we were taught in kindergarten that if we all just did, we'd probably be fine. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent now, man.
I'll leave you with this. I've always been a hardcore hand washer, and when my first daughter was born in South Africa, Dale, I've known Dale for a while, and Dale wasn't always the most hand washy of human beings. Well, yeah, you got to take a dump and come out, and I'm happy to report now he's not the same. He's now a very cleanly man. Gets cleanliness is next to godliness, but he would, yeah, exactly. It's a good way to end, right? He would come right after my daughter was born. He would come over and he wanted to hang out and see her. And the first thing I would make him do when he walked in my house was wash his hands, because I knew for a fact there was a whole bunch of bodily juices and things on those hands that I didn't want anywhere near my kid. So. And I'm the guy that washes my hands so much. Eventually in the winter, it's like cracked and bleeding.
Oh, you got to lotion them.
Yeah. So maybe somewhere between me and Dale would be a good place to be, just in general, and we could get over this. But
well, let's be safe. Let's do what we got to do, and hopefully we can all see each other in person and give each other hugs, because hugs need to happen. All right, man. Seriously, thank you so much.
No worries, brother.
Cutter's Rocckast.
Don't forget to tune in exactly